great crowd from Nelson. And beautiful, first time I've ever been here, so amazing place. So before I start, I want you all to understand one thing. It's like that separates you, the audience, from me up here on the stage. The government loaded the gun, and there was a single round, and they thrust us all into a game of Russian roulette. A little bit of a flashback for you. So I think that it's really important to know that we're just not numbers, and we're not just part of the data, that we're actually people. So I was born in 1962, Billingham in England, and I moved with my family to Australia in 1969. And I want you guys to know I have to read this off the page because there are certain triggers through this story that it's so emotional that if I read this off the page too as I've written it, it gives me something to focus on. And you'll understand why when I get to this. So we moved to Australia in 1969. We were eventually settled in Nhulunbuy in the Northern Territory. So I'm an Aussie, forgive me for that. My early years were marked by a fascination with filmmaking and cinema, sparked by the time working at a local movie theatre, where I learned everything from film exhibitions. So I worked on old 35mm projectors, changing reels, carbon rods, and splicing film like a pro. I actually got that because I was a little thief. I used to go into the cinema, and when the front of house lady went into the cinema to check on the house, I'd go into the forum and I'd steal all the movie posters. And a friend, and I use that word loosely, a friend put me in, and the manager said to me, he said, I'm going to either call the police, I'm going to call your parents, or you can work for what you're stealing. And then from that moment on, he taught me everything about the exhibition business. I even started experimenting with a stop-motion animation using my father's 8mm camera. And if any of you remember what it was like with the 8mm film, you used to send them off to get processed, and you never knew what was on them until you got them back. Shocked my dad. Used to have stop-motion stuff where I'd do a salt and pepper shaker, and I'd shoot 2 frames and 2 frames and 2 frames, and I'd make it look like they were dancing, and my dad thought he had holiday snaps on there. I was not popular. So after leaving Nhulunbuy Area School in 1979, and when I say leaving, I was thrown out, we parted ways very badly. I joined the Royal Australian Air Force in 1980. I served as a police dog in the police dog section, and I stayed with the military for 13 years and rose to the rank of corporal before my honourable discharge. So they didn't want to throw me out. Throughout my service, my love for cinema never faded, and I pursued acting as a secondary job. In 1987, I began my professional acting career, initially landing roles in Darwin and Brisbane, Australia. My early career included appearances in TVCs and TV shows like Australia's Most Wanted. Apparently I looked like a crim. Must have been the movie poster days. And such films as No Escape with Ray Liotta. I did a Kawasaki TV commercial, which was one of the first things I ever starred in. It wasn't until I moved to New Zealand that my career actually began to take off, so New Zealand embraced me, and I love New Zealand for it. In New Zealand, I found sporadic work on popular shows like Young Hercules and Xena Warrior Princess, Shortland Street. Now, Shortland Street, they say it's like an old Chinese proverb. If you sit long enough in one place, the entire world will pass you by. So every actor has been on Shortland Street. But my big break came when I was cast as Lugo, the fierce Germanic warrior in the Starz series Spartacus, Vengeance and War of the Damned. This role granted me significant recognition overseas, and I reprised the character in multiple seasons of the show. My performance brought me international attention, and I became known in the world of action-packed historical dramas, and I felt blessed. But the one role that really stood out for me, I don't know if any of you have seen the Brokenwood Mysteries. I got to play a character called Simon on that. He was a special needs character. And it was incredible to give such and lend such dignity to such a character and to play them without being a caricature. Aside from acting, I'm also a writer and a filmmaker. I studied at Auckland's South Seas Film and Television School, where I earned an NZQA in writing and directing. I've written 2 graphic novels, Dead Man's Land and Tandoori Apocalypse, and yes, they're on Amazon, so don't feel like you have to, but go and take a look. And 2 novels in a trilogy that I'm writing called The Nowhere Man. That's set in my hometown in Australia in the Northern Territory. I've also worked on various film projects as both writer and director, and my short film The Meeting marked my directorial debut. And most recently a doco called Full Throttle about an old motorcycle racer, and he died a couple of years ago, sadly. Absolutely amazing character. I've enjoyed both personal and professional successes over the years in my adopted country, but my life took a tragic turn in 2021 when I developed severe health complications following my second Pfizer COVID-19 vaccination. And when I say vaccination, I say that extremely loosely. The first jab was administered on the 10th of September 2021. The day after receiving the second jab on September 16th, 2021, I was hit with debilitating chronic fatigue, heart palpitations, tremors, crawling skin, air blockages under my diaphragm. My legs filled up with fluid, headaches and other severe symptoms. Over the following 18 months, my health deteriorated, leading to multiple hospitalizations for kidney and prostate infections. I was bleeding through every orifice. My original doctor laughed off the suggestion there was any correlation between the dates of the jab and the symptoms that I was displaying. In fact, he went as far as to laugh at my, quote, conspiracy theories. His words, "It's only now that I understand the pressure these health professionals were placed under, but I do not understand how they could forget the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. It was a lie by omission, and a lie by omission is still a lie." It took almost 4 months to get to see a cardiologist after my symptoms, partly because of lockdowns and partly because of full wards. And when I did, I was immediately hospitalised. I mean, within the session, I was sent into the ward. I was diagnosed with cardiac myopathy and told I wouldn't get worse before I got better, which didn't happen. I got better before I got worse because the inflammation from myocarditis had gone down. It was later explained to me that my symptoms were classic myocarditis, but by the time I'd probably got to the appointment, my inflammation had gone down and there was no way to actually give a formal diagnosis. Privately funded blood tests revealed, so I had another doctor. I went to a great doctor called Robin Kelly, who's NZDSOS, and he suggested I go for antibody blood tests, so spike protein antibody blood tests. So the privately funded blood tests revealed elevated spike protein antibody levels at 3,102.8 per milliliter of blood. A raging COVID infection is between 179 and 300 spike protein antibodies per milliliter of blood. So I had 11 times the amount that you would have, and that's 2 years later. Simultaneously, I had a IgG4 test and my levels were through the roof, and my PSA jumped from a respectable 1 to 15, which scared the hell out of me. I was later, because of the tremors, diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. I believe that my health issues directly linked to the vaccine, though obtaining a formal medical diagnosis to support this had been challenging. To add to the struggles, I was prescribed a Parkinson's drug called Cinemet. After 8 weeks on this drug, I found myself experiencing hallucinations, overwhelming anxiety, deep depression, and suicidal thoughts. Side effects nobody had warned me about. One morning, in utter despair, I attempted suicide by taking sleeping tablets and tried to hang myself. It was 4 hours later that my wife had found me, blue and barely breathing. I woke up in an emergency ward with absolutely zero memory of what I'd done. Since then, I've grappled with this and only could describe it as a form of PTSD. So when William talks to you about me and said, "Oh, the tough guy," I don't think I cried a tear before any of this happened. I can't stop now. I've become emotionally unstable, light and sound sensitive. I can't sit in the cinema to watch a movie without having an anxiety attack. For me, this is likened to a musician becoming tone deaf. I've been gaslit by well-meaning friends and absolute strangers on social media. "Can I play devil's advocate" is one phrase I've learned to absolutely hate. "You're not vaccine injured" is a direct one. "Your life just caught up with you" was an ACC quote. And they gave me the analogy that your life is like a glass. You filled it up this much, we may have filled it up this much, and we'll be responsible for that little that spills. My neurologist explained to me that the tremors I've been seeing from other people on social media are called TikTok tremors. The people I was talking to about, when I told him about these tremors with other people, were personal contacts, and I don't have TikTok. He absolutely refused to discuss any connection between my symptoms with the jab. Every infection, every hospital visit has been treated as an individual event. Causation has been largely ignored. Most of the medical professionals I've crossed paths with only see the trees, and they refuse to see the forest as though it doesn't exist. One of my final visits to the original cardiologist that I saw admitted that I probably had myocarditis. So as I said, I had no formal diagnosis of this, but he was happy enough to say this at the end after a year that he believed this was absolutely the case. He was frustrated and he was angry, and I thought that was directed at me, and I asked him directly, was it? He said, I'm not angry at you, and I'm sorry for the language, but this was his words, it's the fucking system. And he left it at that. Over the last 3, almost 4 years, I've seen every kind of ologist there is out there. Cardiologist, endocrinologist, neurologists, neuropsychiatrists, psychologists. The only ologist I haven't seen, that's a gynecologist. But I'm sure in today's climate that may come soon enough. My journey has put me in contact with people far worse off than I am. And I could say in one that you may have heard of, Casey Hodgkinson. I've met her, and she's one of the bravest souls I have ever met. I can honestly tell you that I do not want to be up here speaking to you people today. I would rather be sitting out there in the audience listening to somebody else. But sadly, that is not the role I get to play. Now, I truly believe that these government employees, doctors, audiologists, are blocking the truth as though there is a statute of limitations on the harms they've caused. So if they can drag us out long enough, they'll defeat us. We cannot let this slide, or it will happen again, and it will load another bullet into the chamber. I'm speaking out, sharing my experience to raise awareness of the potential risks, potential is an interesting word, associated with the COVID-19 jabs. The journey has been painful and personal, but I feel a responsibility to warn others, and that is why I am up here. Despite my ongoing health struggles, I remain committed to my work in the film industry while advocating for greater awareness of vaccine-related injuries. I want accountability from the previous Labor government, and I want action from the current national government. Also, if I can make one other person rethink having this poison injected into their bodies, then I'll have done my job, my work will be done. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for being here. And remember that every one of you, every single one of you knows some people that you can share it to, and that's how we get the word out. We share it with everybody else.